Hey guys, welcome to my vlog. Now, I want to tell you something really important, something that's really close to my heart because I love sea creatures and the environment. I want to teach you something that's really important to know, okay? And that is plastic pollution. Now, every year, 8 million tons of this plastic gets dumped into our oceans every year. Everyday things you would not imagine that can get into the oceans are things like razors for shaving, combs for combing your hair, and toothbrushes for brushing your teeth. Now, why is this really important to know when it comes to sea creatures? Is because sea creatures eat this stuff. And for a long time, scientists didn't know why they were eating this stuff. And we now know the reasons why. And this is the reason why it's so important to know. So, when plastic gets dumped into the oceans, when it stays there for a long period of time, it gets covered in marine algae. Now, marine algae releases this sulfur odor called DMS. And that is an abbreviation for Dimethyl Sulfide. And that is a really important term to know because DMS, dimethyl sulfide, is the odor that breaks down, it's the smell of algae breaking down, okay? And krill is a crustacean that is a major food source for most sea creatures in the sea. And krill like to feast on marine algae. And when krill feast on marine algae, it gives off this DMS, dimethyl sulfide. Now, why is that important? Because when plastic gets covered in marine algae giving off this DMS, dimethyl sulfide, sea creatures can't see that plastic is plastic. They rely on their sense of smell. So when they come across things like plastic floating in the oceans or on the seabed, when they smell that it's covered in algae and it's releasing this DMS, dimethyl sulfide, they think that krill is nearby feasting on the marine algae. So it's not the marine algae that the sea creatures forage for, it's the krill that's feasting on the marine algae. So that is why animals eat plastic, because plastic smells like food. Dimethyl sulfide is the dinner bell that alerts sea creatures, ding ding ding, there is food nearby, there's krill feasting on marine algae. But sea creatures don't know that it's plastic. They feast on it, they swallow it, and it's dangerous. I mean, look at this comb. This comb is so prickly. Can you imagine one of these spear-headed things on the comb piercing a seabird's digestive tract? I mean, seabirds can consume as much as 8% of their own body weight in plastic. Okay, that's the equivalent of a 62 kilo human being consuming 5 kilos of that person's own body weight in plastic. Okay, that's a really scary prospect. And things like plastic bags, sea turtles eat plastic bags thinking that it's jellyfish. And seabirds are eating things like this that are broken down into bits and pieces. So bits of balloon, plastic toys, toothbrushes, all kinds of different micro particles of plastic sea creatures are eating. And it's working its way all down the food chain, from the biggest sea creatures like whales, turtles, sharks, to the smallest organisms like plankton. And it's really, really sad because all these amazing sea creatures that you see in the world are suffering because they're eating 60 to 90% of the litter that's found in our oceans are plastic related. And it's quite alarming that we don't know enough about this. We go about our daily lives using disposable combs, brushing our teeth with toothbrushes that get thrown away on a daily basis, and plastic razors like this that can be disposed of every day for an entire month. I mean, that's 30 of these razors per month on average if someone likes to use a clean razor every day. I mean, imagine all these tons of plastic getting dumped in the oceans, and sea creatures who rely on their sense of smell because they can't see that this is clearly plastic. I mean, we see this as plastic, but animals don't, sea creatures don't see that it's plastic. And they're relying on their crucial sense of smell for foraging food, such as krill, and it gets covered in this marine algae giving off DMS, and that's their dinner bill. And instead of eating krill, they're eating plastic. And I just think things like this is worth knowing. So remember those words, dimethyl sulfide, DMS. Whenever you think of plastic, think of DMS, dinner bell, for sea creatures eating food, because this is not the stuff they should be eating. They shouldn't be eating this stuff. It's really not the nicest thing. I mean, I can't imagine this being tasty. I mean, can you imagine a sea creature thinking that this is tasty and this is appetizing? I mean, look at it. It just looks really prickly. It's really dangerous. And I just think now that you now know why they eat plastic, it's really important that we recycle as much plastic as possible. So using less of these, for example, maybe reusable razors, electric toothbrushes that you don't have to change the brush every so often. So maybe using less of these, and making sure you don't throw out combs like this too often. Things, being mindful of the plastic that we consume on an everyday basis. I think it's really important because 8 million tons of plastic every year is a lot of plastic, and that is so much that there's so much plastic just floating around in our oceans. And I really hope that this helps, and stay safe and use plastic wisely. Take it easy. Bye.